Greetings, kindred friend. Let us spend a quiet moment right now to imagine a river at sunset. The water flows slowly, rhythmically, and peacefully, like the very breath of heaven and earth as the day gradually closes. Perhaps, most of us grew up in a world that teaches us to fear silence. We are often obsessed with the thought that being alone means being abandoned, and a life with a shrinking circle of friends is a sign of sad loneliness. However, dear friend, try to quiet your heart and ask yourself, what if this stillness is not an empty abyss, but actually a sacred door? A threshold leading us away from borrowed noises to return to complete freedom, where we no longer need to strain to prove ourselves or please anyone anymore. In tonight's journey, we will explore together a secret that Buddhist sages have cherished for thousands of years. Why having fewer external relationships is exactly when we are fullest inside. We will together find peace in radiant aloneness and realize that, after so many years of carrying the world, this is exactly the time you are gifted the most precious gift, which is yourself. Let your mind rest, for you are about to realize that you have inherently always been enough. Lesson 1. The Purification of Time. Understanding the shift in priorities. Do you remember the years of your youth? Back then, we often measured our self-worth by the number of hands we had shaken, the parties we attended, or our presence amidst the crowd. We accumulated relationships like accumulating medals, because our minds back then always craved to be seen and recognized by the world. In Buddhist wisdom, the youthful ego is often built upon borrowed reflections from others. However, when crossing the age of 60, a fatigue full of wisdom begins to appear. You realize that maintaining social masks, trying to smile during empty conversations, or compromising with unsuitable energy sources has become too overwhelming. Imagine your energy right now is like a precious oil lamp. When young, the oil was full, and we were ready to light it up in the middle of a storm for anyone passing by. But now, when the drops of oil have become concentrated and quintessential, you begin to learn how to shield that candle, reserving the light only for what is truly meaningful. Let me tell you about a contrast where perhaps you will see yourself. Remember a crowded party where the music was loud and greetings were rushed. You stood there, surrounded by dozens of people, but deep inside, you still felt an immense sense of being lost. Now, compare it with a quiet morning on the porch, when you just sit alone with a warm cup of tea, quietly watching a newly bloomed flower branch in the garden. In that stillness, you do not feel lacking at all. On the contrary, you feel full, steady, and complete. This is the exact moment the awakening begins. You realize that you do not need a crowd to feel you exist. The Buddha taught that everything is impermanent, and the noisy ego of the past is also gradually melting to make way for a quieter self. Do not be afraid when the list of phone calls gets shorter or invitations gradually become sparse. Tell your heart a liberating truth. This is not loneliness. This is a liberation. You becoming more selective is not selfishness. It is wisdom in preserving peace for the remaining precious period of life. You no longer chase after the noises outside because you have found a deeper rhythm right inside your own heart. Lesson 2. The Power of Self-Reliance, when you are the steadiest anchor. Have you ever felt tired of having to play the role of a good person, a useful person, or someone always willing to help for an entire lifetime? We have spent decades managing the expectations of parents, children, and society. We mistakenly believe that happiness is when we are surrounded by being needed by others. But in Buddhist wisdom, there is a symbolic image for ultimate liberation. That is the moment Prince Siddhartha quietly left the Golden Palace in the middle of the night. He left not because he stopped loving, but because he realized that as long as we borrow joy from the recognition of the world, we remain slaves to agitations. Old age gives you a similar sacred privilege. That is the permit for you to stop pleasing everyone. The self-reliance that I am talking about here is not isolation or avoiding society. And please understand, Self-reliance is not coldness. It does not mean you close your heart or reject love. On the contrary, it is when you find a lighthouse right in your heart, so that whether the tide rises or drifts out there, you are still not swept away by it. Let us recall together a truly peaceful moment, an early morning when you wake up even before the sun rises. The space is silent, with only the sound of the wind gently swaying the leaves or the murmuring sound of waves crashing from afar. In that moment, you do not need to do anything for anyone, do not need to say any word to satisfy others. You feel the warmth of the air entering your lungs, feel the steadiness of your shoulders. Right at that moment, do you see yourself complete? Do you realize that you have inherently always been enough? This is the true freedom that old age brings. You are free from the need to be understood, free from the fear of being forgotten. When you learn how to enjoy your own company, you will see every moment become strangely sacred. You no longer wait for a call to feel valuable, no longer wait for a compliment to feel radiant. Engrave this truth into your mind. You are your own island. When you can smile at your own aloneness, you are no longer a beggar going to ask for love, but become an ocean of tolerance, where all rivers of peace naturally find their way to reside. Lesson 3. The depth of connection, when quality is the final voice. In ancient wisdom, all relationships operate according to the law of impermanence. There are people who come to teach us a lesson. There are people who come to walk a stretch of road with us, and then when the karmic connection is exhausted, they quietly leave like falling leaves returning to their roots. At this age, trying to hold on to a quantity of friends only makes your soul more tired. Understand the simple Zen philosophy. When drinking tea, just know you are drinking tea. When applied to friendship, it means complete presence. Imagine a simple dinner with an old friend. No loud music, no vain boasting words. The two people just sit there, taking a sip of warm tea, sometimes silent for long minutes, but still feeling a deep connection through eyes and breath. Compared to a crowded party where we have to strain to speak empty words, this stillness is exactly a noble form of love. At this stage of life, the greatest gift you can offer to others is not material things, but the ability to listen. The Buddha taught about compassion through deep listening. When you listen to a person with all your heart, without judgment, without preparing a reply, you are watering their soul with a miraculous healing energy source. Such a deep connection is worth more than 1,000 superficial social interactions. Engrave this truth into your mind. The value of a human life does not lie in the number of hands we have shaken, but lies in the number of hearts we have touched. Tonight, smile at the gaps in your friends list. Do not resent those who have left. Silently send thanks, because they were once a part of the sheet music of your life. And cherish manifold the rare souls that remain, the people who do not need you to be someone else, but love you for the very stillness and wisdom that you are possessing. Lesson 4. The sanctuary of silence, the beauty of solitude. Do you hear the sound of your house right now? An encompassing silence. The world calls this emptiness, but under the lens of wisdom, this is exactly a sanctuary reserved exclusively for your soul. In the Buddhist tradition, Zen masters often sought out deep forests or deserted stone caves. They did not do so to escape life or out of hatred for people. They sought solitude because they understood that only when the outside noise dies down does the voice of the true self truly begin to speak. The Buddha, Zen masters, or the greatest sages in history, all viewed being alone as a prerequisite to attaining wisdom. Understand this difference. Loneliness is the fear when there is no one nearby, while solitude is the joy when being accompanied by oneself. When you are alone, you are not separated at all. In essence, this is when you are reuniting with your most authentic self, the person who has been forgotten after so many years of you being absorbed in caring for the world out there. In this stillness, wisdom begins to sprout, memories are rearranged, and your soul is cleansed by deep contemplation. Tonight, I invite you to perform a small practice of presence. Before closing your eyes, try sitting still for just 3 minutes. Do not seek out any thoughts, nor try to chase away the silence. Just sit there. Feel the warmth of the skin and the gentle beat of the heart. You will realize that, in this radiant solitude, you are inherently already a full and complete universe. Engrave this truth. Silence is not an empty space. It is the place containing all the answers that you always seek. When you learn how to enjoy your own company, you will see the world no longer has the power to hurt you with heartlessness or oblivion. Lesson 5. From Solitude to Interbeing, the true meaning of connection. Try observing the image of a great ancient tree standing firmly in the middle of an old forest. Looking from afar, the tree seems solitary amidst the expansive space, but deep beneath the ground, its roots are silently connecting and nourishing thousands of other living beings. Your old age is exactly the same. You becoming more selective with social relationships is not to isolate yourself, but to prepare for a nobler form of loving, that is interbeing. We belong to each other in a silent and deep connection. At this stage, your role has changed. You are no longer the person who must rush out to fight or shoulder all practical responsibilities. You have become the keeper of the fire of wisdom in your family and community. In the teachings of the Buddha, passing down a legacy does not only lie in assets, but lies in the aura of a soul that has become peaceful. When you sit still, smile, and listen to your descendants, you are bestowing a spiritual legacy more precious than all silver and gold. That is the feeling of being sheltered by a peaceful shade. This is also the time you practice the perfection of giving in the most subtle way. Giving is not just money. The greatest gift that an elderly person can give away is exactly their mindful presence. A small community consisting of a few sincere friends, or a warm embrace for a loved one, all are built on authenticity rather than social courtesy. Understand the ultimate truth about sharing. The greatest gift you leave behind for the world is not what you did, but the peace you have achieved. Tonight, sleep in silent pride. You are not leaving the world at all. You are simply learning how to love the world with a heart no longer entangled, compassionate, and deep, like the very silence you are cherishing. Lesson 6. Liberation from social expectations when refusal is wisdom. Do you ever realize that, even when the body is tired, our minds are still frequently tormented by the whispers of an inferiority complex? We tell ourselves, I should have attended that gathering, I should have answered this call immediately, or if I socialize less, people will think I am old and outdated. We spend half a lifetime building identities. And now, we are afraid of having to let go of that identity to return to stillness. In the wisdom of the Buddha, true freedom begins when you stop being a hostage to external judgments. He once cast off his crown and palace, not because he rejected love, but because he understood that peace of the soul is not a commodity to be traded for the satisfaction of the crowd. Tonight, I invite you to bravely erase the social contract that you have signed all this time. Understand that every refusal toward external agitations is exactly an earnest affirmation toward inner life. When you say no to an energy-draining meeting or a relationship where only complaints remain, that is not selfishness. It is compassion dedicated to your own nervous system that needs rest. At this age, your dignity lies in knowing what you need and do not need. You no longer owe the world an explanation for your silence. Engrave this truth. A refusal spoken from mindfulness is exactly a high-level form of wisdom. Tonight, allow yourself to be free of affairs. Let all expectations of society stop outside the bedroom door. You do not need to be an energetic or extroverted person to feel valuable. You only need to be a serene presence, steady as a mountain, regardless of whether the dark clouds of judgments drift by. Sleep in the relief of a soul that is truly free, no longer carrying any debts to the gaze of the world. Lesson 7. The art of minimalist connection, when presence is the ultimate gift. Dear friend, there is a silent pain that many elderly people often bear, which is the feeling of being abandoned by the world when health no longer allows us to participate in lively activities like before. We look at busy children and grandchildren, look at society rushing by, and feel like a spectator standing on the outside. But let awakened wisdom gift you a more tolerant view. Connection does not lie in movement. Connection lies in presence. At this age, you do not need to make long trips or throw lavish parties to maintain deep affection. True connection is sometimes just small gestures, but carrying the frequency of pure love. That is spending 5 minutes to truly listen to a friend over the phone without judging. That is the gentle smile you give to the mailman, or a good thought you silently send to your children before going to sleep. Especially, do not consider technology as a barrier separating generations. Turn the small screen into a gentle bridge of light, a message wishing a peaceful day, a photo of a newly bloomed flower in the garden sent to an old friend. In Buddhist wisdom, this is exactly interbeing. It is the way we water each other's soul land without disturbing the stillness of each person. Engrave this soothing truth. Your silent presence is more precious than all loud words, and your quiet kindness has the power to move more than all ostentatious actions. You do not need to chase after the world to be loved. When you stand still in peace and tolerance, you are exactly a magnet of goodness. Tonight, allow yourself to rest in that sacred connection. A connection that does not demand the exhaustion of the physical body, but only needs the warmth of a soul that has truly found home. Dear friend, after all the years rushing out in the world to seek belonging, let me give you a final confirmation. Old age is not a retreat in bitterness, and the decreasing of social relationships is not a sentence of loneliness. On the contrary, this is exactly the most sacred harvest season of a human life. Take a deep breath and feel your own presence right now. The silence encompassing your room is not an empty abyss. It is a warm embrace that the universe is reserving exclusively to soothe you. In the wisdom of awakening, we understand that old age is not a loss, but a distillation. You do not lose friends. You are just keeping the souls that are truly in tune. You do not lose strength. You are just transforming it into profound wisdom. Engrave this truth into your mind before sinking into sleep. Solitude is not isolation, but a radiant reunion with oneself. It is time you stop looking out the window to wait for a silhouette and begin looking inward to see a Buddha smiling calmly. You do not need the recognition of the crowd to see yourself as valuable. You do not need noisy words to see yourself as complete. You have inherently always been enough, from the first breath up to this very moment. Tonight, allow yourself to rest in absolute sovereignty. Let the darkness embrace you, and let the company of yourself be the closest soulmate, putting you into deep sleep. Before closing your eyelids, I invite you to silently repeat with me this mantra of peace, like a promise to the soul. I am home. I am peace. I am enough. Wishing you a long night of peace, complete letting go, and an early morning waking up radiant in the light of inner freedom. Goodbye, and see you again in the next journeys of awakening.